Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, my name is Nur Jaya. My official number is A1M219O56. And I will discuss about assessing students' content knowledge and language proficiency. The relationship between language proficiency and content knowledge in assessment has always been a complicated one. For assessment purposes, language proficiency and content knowledge have traditionally been viewed as separate and distinct constructs. Regardless of the purpose of an assessment, either to attest takers' language proficiency or their content knowledge in a particular area, these two constructs cannot be so easily distinguished. Any assessment of content will involve language, and any assessment of language that will be useful for making inference about a test taker's ability to use language in a context outside the test itself will involve some content or topical knowledge. Therefore, the nature of the content-language link and the role it plays in construct definitions when assessing learners of a second or additional language has become an important concern in the field of assessment. The need to better understand the relationship between language proficiency and content knowledge emerged initially in the context of bilingual education and the content-based instruction movement in the 1990s, Burns 2008. Since then, the need has only increased. As a result of immigration and globalization, a sizable proportion of students in schools and universities are learning content in a second or additional language. Also, the workforce continues to become more global, and many workers practice their profession in a second or additional language. Early development. This content-based instruction changed the landscape of language teaching by shifting the focus in communication from the general to content. As a language learning context, Brinton et al. 1989. In the context of content-based teaching and bilingual education programs, concerns about the relationship between content and language are beginning to be articulated explicitly. Burns 2008. A short 1993 explains that in this context, English learners need to be involved in the regular curriculum before they fully master English, because there is no time to delay academic teaching until the students have developed a high level of English proficiency if they to stay in school, do well in their classes, and graduate with a high school diploma. A claim that is still valid and relevant today for students worldwide who are in the school system where they are studying content in a second or additional language. Language for specific purpose tests generally focus on adults with a high level of expertise in a particular area. For this population, the challenge may simply be identifying the minimum threshold level of proficiency required for communication. It could be that beyond the level of proficiency, language no longer plays an important role. The challenge for the language for specific purpose field then is to identify what thresholds are. Content and language assessment in schools, however, presents a distinct challenge where students develop their language skills and content knowledge at the same time. Content and language assessment of English language learners at school. A greater focus on testing and accountability in many countries around the world has resulted in more assessments of students, including those studying in a second or additional language. In the USA, for example, No Child Left Behind 2001 requires all students, including English language learning, to be assessed in the content areas of English language arts, mathematics, and science. The law also requires that English language learning language proficiency be assessed annually. First, content-language links in content assessment. The main challenge in assessing the English language learning in the area of content in English is the interpretation of the score. Does the score on the content assessment represent students' content knowledge, or does it represent their ability to read, understand, and respond to questions in English? AB 2004 argues that language is a sort of irrelevant construct variance when assessing English language learners in content areas, and that scores from this assessment are not a meaningful indicator of students' content knowledge. This perspective is supported by correlational studies, which have found a relationship between the presence of complex linguistic features in test items and the greater relative difficulty of items for English language learners. Example, Wolf and Leon 2009. Second, content language links in English language proficiency assessment. Research on English language proficiency tests developed prior to NCLP uncovered that the language assessed by this test didn't align with the types of academic language that students needed to succeed in school. Example, Stevens et al. 2000. Work was carried out to define and operationalize the construct of academic language proficiency by investigating empirically the kinds of English required of K-12 English language learners, Bailey and Butter 2003. Various categorizations of academic language emerge describing it in terms of its lexical, grammatical, and textual characteristics. Work in progress in the area of K-12 assessment in the USA has the potential to inform and transform the way the relationship between language proficiency and content knowledge is envisioned and how these constructs will be assessed in the future. A new wave of standards has emerged through the Common Core State Standards, or CCSS, for English language arts and literacy in history, social studies, science, and technical subjects. The CCSS in mathematics, Common Core State Standards Initiative, and the next Generation Science Standards NGSS Lead State 1213. These standards represent a major shift in the way content is defined, taught, and assessed. Problem and difficulties. The lack of empirical research on the development and relationship between content knowledge and language proficiency remains a major challenge. In the context of K-12 assessment in schools specifically, there is a lack of research on the relationship between academic language development and content teaching for all students, not just English language learners. France et al. 2014. The lack of empirical research and the fact that both language proficiency and content knowledge develop across the classroom make it very difficult to establish boundaries between these constructs. I think it is enough for me. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.